Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It. This is Susan Johnson, and my co-host is home resting, has a little COVID, but I'm here. I tested negative again today, and I'm back here, and I'm here with John Murphy from the Wednesday show. Welcome, John.
Very happy to be here. I sent my best to Dennis for a quick recovery, and I'm very happy to be here today sharing the studio. I think we put together a very interesting show that connects to our holiday on the 4th and the issues that we're facing today politically in a very interesting way.
Absolutely. I thought, boy, here's a great opportunity to have John Murphy on our show, and he can talk about his amazing experience doing radio since, I think, sometime in the 70s.
Yeah, actually, I will not bore you with too many details because it really isn't about me. But for me, I was at my first radio station when I was in high school, and I was there when the first Jimi Hendrix record came in the mail.
Oh, my goodness.
That was WRNW in Westchester County, New York, in Mount Kisco. Mm-hmm. And so that got me into radio, and that became a path for me. And after going to school and doing commercial work for a while, I moved out here to Yukon and Stores to manage their growing community radio station, WHUS, at the time in the late 70s. I came here in the fall of 78 to keep our timeline fast.
Uh-huh.
And the students had united with a group of community members to make a new kind of radio called community radio, and they needed a manager to help them run it and raise money. So I came out as their first manager. I was there for a long time and really loved working there. And then I got involved locally in the area more and more over the years, and I fell in love with the town and the people and the community. And I discovered something that folks who live here know, is that if you stay somewhere long enough, you can hear the streets. You can hear the local vibe. If you're transient and you're moving around in a fast-moving career, you'll never hear this. You'll never feel it. But when you walk around this town, if you've been here long enough, it feels nice these days.
Yes, it does.
And that's why we're here today, is to share that on all these different shows here.
That's right. And that's a great way to move into the parade, the Boombox Parade, celebrating Independence Day, July 4th. 1776, the day that we have the Declaration of Independence.
39 years for the Boombox Parade. How about that? 39 years.
Yes, and what an amazing celebration it is. And it is something that has been, wow, it's great. And we have a wonderful, talk about a community vibe that spreads all throughout the state and sometimes through the country. And sometimes we even have people from other countries here.
Yeah. You know, when I first came out here, I would say the largest ethnic group was Puerto Rican. Mm-hmm. Very dominant at the time. Totally diverse now. And that's just over 30, 35 years. So people change, things move around, the community spirit stays. And what you get now is more flavor. You get a lot more texture. And that's really fun. When you hear live music, you hear a lot more different live music, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Food as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's wonderful food. One of the things that I have to say when you mention food is the fact that Windham Willimantic has some of the best restaurants anywhere and a great variety of different types of food. And I have to say, we were in another part of the state where I thought they'd have a lot of great food in Mystic. And when my husband and I went to have lunch there, we ended up coming back here to Willimantic because we couldn't really find a place that was suitable for our taste at the time, and we were able to come right back here and have a great lunch.
Something more than pizza there, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So it is an amazing community, and we're fighting. I'm fighting with Senator Flexer all the time to make sure that we're recognized statewide, that we're attractive to businesses, and that we are working to make sure our community, all the people in the community, have a great appreciation for where we are and what we're doing here. So that is one of the things that I wanted to chatter about today and have you talk about, because I mentioned to you that there was a quiz in the
yes. Yeah. Okay, here we
in
go.
the Chronicle.
Quiz.
A pop quiz about the Declaration of Independence. And I even heard on some of the radio shows that you hear people saying, well, what day was it signed? July 4th, 1776, everybody.
248.
So, yeah. And so I suppose in a couple of years we might have a big festival.
Yeah, 250. Huge, right? 250.
Yeah. You'll have to take the whole month off. What do you think? But anyway, so I thought that this was interesting. It says, which colony had the most signers of the Declaration of Independence? And of course, we know that it would be Pennsylvania because they had the most delegates, right?
Much bigger state than Connecticut, even then.
Yes.
I think we had 4, right, in Connecticut?
Yeah,
Huntington?
Yeah, Huntington was
we
a
had
signer.
4.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, and then which signer's autograph is considered the rarest in the American history? And we have the answer over here, which is former governor of Gwinnett, D.C., but Bhutan, Gwinnett, rather.
Okay.
And then we have how many signers died before America won its independence?
Well, that's a sad question.
Yeah, that is a sad question.
Not everybody made it.
Yeah,
Not
that's
everybody
right.
made it.
And between 1776 and 1783, when we achieved the independence, we lost, let's see, 9 of the signers had died.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then what was the most common occupation among the signers? And of course, it would be lawyers and judges.
Yes, some things don't change.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have had a harder time, I think,
Yeah.
doing it without
Yeah.
the lawyers and judges.
Just have a different service district, that's all. Yeah.
And then persons to sign all 3 of America's founding documents. And we have the answer here, which is number 5.
That would be good to know.
Yeah,
That would
Franklin holds the distinction.
Franklin?
Yep, he
All
was.
right.
Yeah, he had his name to
Franklin.
all of them. Yes, he did.
I guess getting hit by lightning really gave him extra juice, right? Maybe that's what we should do more often.
Yeah, well, you never know.
but
So
that's
anyway, so I thought that those were interesting questions, and
It's a good tie-in, for this
Yeah.
election year because we are kind of reliving some of our history now with some of the incredibly tenacious, difficult, contentious political things that are taking what is normally a give and take, win and lose, game of power and shared authority into a win or lose where if you don't take one side, you're all of a sudden the enemy. And that is alien to
Yes.
where these people came from. That was not their vision. And bringing that up now is a good reminder that we're going to be making decisions that they'll be looking at,
right,
saying, are we going to blow it?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is it is it's always there's always a tension, and of course the Declaration of Independence is we're declaring our independence from England.
Yeah.
We knew that would cause problems, would cause war. They had to declare it because the British were getting pushier and pushier and
Yeah.
kind of meaner and meaner, and fighting more and more, and trying to negotiate with the king was getting very, very difficult.
And when you learn the history, the local press, those little printing presses with little newspapers and flyers that were handed out all over the towns, people would travel with them. That was their media to know what was happening because you were in danger. And you had to know what's happening over there because this is not watching TV. And what you don't know could put you in real jeopardy.
Absolutely.
Signing your name, your life, and your family is at risk. That's chutzpah.
That's right, and that's what
Real chutzpah.
they knew they were putting their lives on the line when they signed the Declaration of Independence. That's what they knew. And one of the things that I wanted to also take a peek at is in the New York Times, and it was talking about how other countries celebrate their independence, and they celebrate the independence from rules with bigger countries that took them over. And so there was one where Algeria celebrates July 5th, which is today.
Okay.
Yeah, Algeria lived under 132 years of colonial French rule. 132 years, and they're happy to get away from France.
Oh, yeah, the Battle of Algiers is an
Yes.
awesome, right, that Battle of Algiers tells it all.
Yes, it does. And then Iceland, June 17th, my husband's birthday.
Right. Very good.
Iceland was part of Denmark until it had a referendum during the Nazi era, and Icelanders now celebrate independence So they do on June 17th. June 17th. I'm sorry, June. I thought it was July.
Okay.
Okay, my bad.
But that's a painful birth from the whole Nazi stress to kind of divide up that way.
Yes.
They worked it out, though. See, that shows you how serious it was, and they found some way to get through it.
And they go through Indonesia, August 17th. They got rid of Dutch colonial rule in Indonesia, and now they are celebrating it on that date. Jamaica commemorates its turn from a British colony into a Commonwealth country on August 6th. And August 3rd, Nigeria celebrates its independence, commemorating the end of the French colonial rule. So, and I could go on and on. I don't want to spend too much more time on.
But it's a historical event that is shared across the world.
Whenever people get away from being a colony and they have that independence of what they want to do, what they want to be as a country, it means a lot. And I mean, that is something that I think one of the things that we put together after World War II, we tried before after World War I, but when we created the United Nations, we had the countries that wanted to be part of a group that got together to talk about, their countries. It's good to have the talk, even if you don't agree. And that is one of the things that has helped with world peace. It's not perfect, obviously, but they are there to try and make a difference.
Sometimes I'll say, well, compared to what,
Yeah.
They tried the League of Nations. That didn't hold up too well.
Exactly.
People have tried for a long time to get over that.
Yeah. But moving on to today's election in the United Kingdom, they have one of the biggest events that they've had in a long time. Keir Starmer is the new prime minister. He's the head of the Labour Party, and he just won a huge win. And Rishi Sunak, who is the current prime minister, gave a wonderful speech saying he's resigning with kindness and decency and tolerance towards people. He spoke kind words for the incoming prime minister, Keir Starmer.
They did.
I thought it was a wonderful speech, and just showing how the transition of power, going from one group to the next, and working together, so important.
And it's a good example of how countries repeat the same lessons with different faces, because the Tories, the Conservatives, this was the worst electoral defeat since they were founded. Well over into the, I guess it was late 1800s. But anyway, it was a historic defeat for them, and it shows that the nation had an extremely strong reaction. And that's how at some point things cook along, and one day it can get violent in some countries. Other ways you have an electoral landslide, like we had in '64, civil rights driven maybe.
Yes.
But, Lyndon Johnson rode a wave when people voted overwhelmingly. So that's a reassuring thing, that if people do vote, they can make things happen. They can't blame everybody else sometimes.
Right. I think that's one of the things we've really tried to bring home is, in all the elections, whether you're a local election, which I always say has the most impact on your life, the people who are doing the Board of Ed, the people who are on the council, the people who are on the Board of Finance, they have one of the biggest impacts on your life. So getting out for that local election, and it seems like the turnouts are so low locally, but if people come out for that, they can have a huge impact. Come out to the boards of ed, come out to the council and speak, come out to the Board of Finance and speak. These are the places where you can really connect with your community representatives. It's the place where you can really have a talk about how things work and what you'd like to see, what your vision is, and why your vision, may be different from the people who are representing you now. But talk about it and find out what they're dealing with, because sometimes they're dealing with things that we may not be aware of. So you may have an idea that isn't going to quite pan out without maybe it takes somebody to organize a big group of people to make that kind of a change, and the council can't do it by itself, or the Board of Finance can't do it by itself, Board of Ed can't do it by itself. It always takes a group in politics, especially if it's a democracy.
And something that's different today than perhaps when I first came out to the area from New York is that the rate of change has accelerated. The time between proposals and actions sometimes shrinks. And the more people are left out of this faster process, the more you find out after the fact there are impacts that you don't know about. And the process was followed. You can't blame people for following the rules, but people weren't there. And at some point, the world of journalism used to help you because they would cover your back. When you had a job or you were in school, well, there was a journalist who could cover big meetings, and they would tell you what's going on. Well, these kinds of jobs are disappearing. Having a station like WILI with local talk shows is not common anymore. So anyway, I'm just saying that the idea of local engagement means people have to think about themselves. And I know when I talk to many town leaders, they feel burnt out sometimes. They're carrying a huge workload as volunteers in many cases. And they need to have many hands to lighten the load because the pressure's building and these projects are getting bigger all the time.
They are
Right?
getting bigger, and that's why it's so important for the town leaders and the state representatives and the congressmen to always be in connection with each other, in addition to being in connection with the people that they're representing, because it's really important to have those communication systems open and having the real information out there for people to really understand why things are working the way they are, or if they don't think they're working, what is it that needs to change to make it work? So those are things. And as things, as you say, change very, very quickly, they're changing very quickly because there may be federal laws that we're not aware of that make a
Sure.
change fast. There may be state laws that the local community isn't aware of. So I try to do the show here to make sure people know what's going on, and I also try to send out mailers and try and let people know the laws that were changed that I think are more relevant to this community.
You know, I should mention something that probably Susan and Dennis don't mention that often, but they've been doing this a long time here. 1998. That's 26 years of devotion to sharing stories and information here. And that's part of why this station is special, but the people behind the mics are doing this job. So thank you for all that work.
Well, thank you. We had a
Seriously.
couple of years in between where we
Yeah,
were
yeah,
even,
of course.
but
And there are times when there is an election season,
Mm-hmm.
certain number of months. If anybody here on any of the shows is involved in any political race, it doesn't matter the show, then they take time off.
Mm-hmm.
Until the campaign's done, they get back to work, here they are again. So that happens.
yeah.
It'll happen this year
Yeah,
too.
but
That's
yeah.
right.
So we're very honored and pleased to be able to connect with the community. We
Yeah.
feel very strongly that it's important for people to understand how things work. I know that's been one of my motivations in my whole life is to make sure I understand how everything works.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I think we have to kind of focus on, because if we don't understand how everything works, then we may miss something in terms of how the policy is impacting somebody. And it's really, really important for us to get that. And so one of the things that I was so pleased with, and we have this situation where there is a public television show that is on Netflix now. I think it's or it could be HBO.
Is it a PBS series?
Yeah,
you mean?
it was. It
PBS?
was once. It's on John Adams,
Oh, yeah.
on the Declaration of Independence, and how he and Benjamin Franklin got together, and how. One of the things that really impressed me, because I was reviewing it last night in kind of preparation for this discussion, and it's long, so I couldn't see the whole thing, but
Well, it was several hours.
yes, it is. But I was having a good time. Anyway, he was talking about liberty and how liberty is something that you don't have a king. With liberty, everybody's treated the same. With liberty, everybody has to adhere to the same laws and rules, and they have to be held up to the same standard. And with a king, that's not so. If the king is annoyed with someone, the king was having them beheaded or removed from wherever.
Well, that goes back to the real good old days when the church was your sanctuary from the king. Before you were beheaded, that might be one place to go. But that whole attitude is still with us to this day. Yeah, that's the problem. People are still looking for that power. And they apply it statewide, locally, and they kind of tip the scales a little bit, and they don't let things go back and forth. People make different proposals, some work, you have partners, That's the mechanics that people think are boring. but that's how things get done.
Or they always
Right.
have the sausages made.
Yeah, I know. It's easy for me to say, too, because I'm not there when the sausage is made.
Well, I am,
but people
but-
don't realize that's the human part of it. People
That
are there
is.
for a reason.
And that's why it's so
Yeah.
important for us
Yeah.
to hear from our constituents all
Yeah.
throughout the state. When we are passing a state law, we need to hear. We have hearings. We don't pass laws without hearings.
Right.
We have hearings, and sometimes we put the bills together into one big bill, but they've all had some way of communicating with the public, so the public understands what we're doing. And of course, not everybody's going to agree on every bill that gets passed. So it's one of those things that happens. But when I thought about that, and I thought about what is going on, or what went on during, say, World War I, between World War I and World War II, and one of my favorite authors has been Aldous Huxley, or he was actually Eric Blair. And, he was very, very, very a strong poet, even at the age of 11.
Mr. Brave New World.
No, that's Aldous Huxley, and then I'm talking about
George Orwell?
George Orwell.
1984.
1984, that's right, and Animal Farm. And he's Eric Blair. And so, anyway, that would be, he wrote a great poem at the age of 11.
Okay.
I thought it was really fabulous. And he says, "Awake, young men of England, and oh, give me the strength of the lion, the wisdom of Renaud the fox, and then I'll hurl troops at Germans and give them the hardest of knocks. Oh, think of the warlord's mail fist that is striking at England today, and think of the lives that our soldiers are fearlessly throwing away. Awake, O young men of England, for if, when your country is in need, you do not enlist by the thousand, you truly are cowards indeed." 11 years old.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And that was George Orwell, who was actually Eric Blair.
Well, you don't need a PhD to get everything in this world.
That was great. And he did go to
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're winding down to our break.
Okay.
So we're going to hear from our sponsors, and we will be right back after these messages. This is Susan Johnson. I'm here with John Murphy, and we're here talking about Independence Day. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with John Murphy, and we're here talking about community radio, and we love WILI, AM and FM. We are here to actually try and make sure we're kind of connecting all our shows, and we got John Murphy here to do that. So we're so happy that you're doing that.
I'm really happy to be asked to join someone else on their show, because this is becoming an increasingly special station. It has a real long history now, but with so many local media sources being limited today for all kinds of reasons, the ones that we have are becoming more conspicuous and valuable. So recently, people are still discovering that they've doubled their airtime in the afternoons for prime time, drive time, information, local shows. So now it's 4 to 6, Monday through Friday. Used to be 5 to 6. So it's another way to add more variety to the local shows. And there'll be a lot more information about the individual shows. We're not going to run it all down now. But one thing you can do is just go to YouTube. One thing they've done that helps Susan and Dennis a lot, and a number of us, is there's a YouTube channel that has many of our shows 24/7. You can watch them anytime, even on your phone. If you miss the broadcast, because we love live radio, that's fun. But it's important for you to get the shows. So just go to WILI Radio on YouTube, and every show has its own playlist. And you'll be able to connect to the guests each week that Susan and Dennis have. And if you miss a show one week, it's there for you anytime. I'm sure it's helped you and some of your guests already quite a bit.
Well, certainly. And one of the
Right.
things that I do, not only do we have YouTube, but we do the podcast. And I send the podcast
Right.
to the Capitol. And whoever is on the show gets a copy of the podcast, and they can put it on their website. I put it on my website at the Capitol. And they have, if you go on my website at the Capitol, you get a list of all the shows we've had and who the people were
Right.
on there. And that way people can pick a show and listen to it if it happens to be of interest to them. And it really does help, I think, spread the information that we have here, because it's really, we've got to pick up the slack, because we've been shut down in so many ways. ways with respect to community news and information. And so that's why I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to continue to do Let's Talk About It, and that WILI is here as a local community radio station, because it's a valuable, valuable thing for this region.
And just before we got back on the air, we were on the phone with Dennis, because what we've also done is we've created kind of a media hub for local channels to share content and cross-promote to help audiences find each other. So we have a nice connection here with our shows and Neighbors, which is a wonderful print publication that comes out bi-monthly now. Sometimes it gets to be monthly depending on advertising support, but right now they're bi-monthly. It's in 22 towns. It's a print newspaper that is a real valuable gem of local event information, town information. It fills in for things that wouldn't normally go into your local paper anyway. So that's real value, and the Neighbors is a good publication. It's online. If you don't know about it, it's available everywhere for free, but I will give the website, because Tom King needs to know you're out there, is neighborspaper.com. So it's really simple. Neighborspaper.com. All the issues are there as an archive. You can connect to the writers. And if you have information to share, send it to Tom. He's happy to get it out in print. If you contact our different program hosts like Susan or Dennis, or if you're into music, Matt, who's running the show now behind the scenes, Matt Rupar does Homegrown on Fridays before our show. Matt, he's right there. He keeps all the rabbits fed with lettuce to keep all the machines, all the machines running. So anyway, they're on YouTube. You can connect if you want to be on. If you have information, contact us. It's an open door.
All right. Well, that's absolutely fabulous. And I know that you had some ideas that you wanted to raise in addition to us making sure that we do this great idea that you have to connect all our local radio shows so that the people will know what's going on. And I just wondered where were you on your next item?
Okay, well, one of the things that really kept me here, besides the land and the beautiful people that are here, is the opportunity to help local media grow. Because in a big city, it's a whole different game. At the local level, you really get to know people on the street. You get to be known. People see you around. And the idea of helping a community recover. This town was in recovery when I arrived in the late 70s. The mills had closed, a lot of stress. Right now, it's in a wonderful revival period. There's still work to be done, but if you were here then, you know what I'm talking about. If you were here, you know what's been good about the recovery here. So these are good stories that we're trying to share here. But trying to do cable TV, I should mention the Spectrum has a really good public access channel that's coming back to life. COVID shut down their studio operations where they used to have people come in, get video training, learn how to do their own community TV shows. And Channel 192, if you're a Spectrum customer, everybody has Channel 192. That's your public access channel. That program, beginning in July, is now being renewed. So they're coming out of the cave after COVID to get people's hands on equipment to do more local shows. So what kept me here was the cable TV, local print, stations like ILI. I worked up at Yukon at WHOS for many years and some of their community radio broadcasts. So you need to enjoy commercial media, enjoy commercial entertainment, but stay local. Stay local. Check out the websites of stations. If you have information, these are guest opportunities for you. And one thing I do that I'm very happy about, and this is the last thing I'll do, I don't want to go on too much, is people can't buy media. It's very expensive. So let's say you're in an organization and you have a once-a-year fundraiser that you need to make money to survive. You come here on one of our shows, 15-minute segment, tell your story. When it's posted, you get a link. And then every email you send, every poster that you put up has this little YouTube link where you get a free 15-minute video to help you raise money for your nonprofit. So this is a community resource that Susan and Dennis have been using since 1998 to let people come on and tell their stories. Well, now we have YouTube. So you can have your stories here, and now you can capture them and get them out on your own and accelerate success. So that's our hope for doing all this stuff.
It's a wonderful
I know,
thing, and
yeah.
it's when we started in '98,
Right.
we didn't have the changes with the internet, with streaming, with those kinds of things.
That's right.
And I remember a couple of years ago when I started talking about the show and telling people to tune in, and here's some more information, and they said, "Well, gee, we're streaming," and I'm there, oh.
Yeah.
And so this is something that, we're looking at now. Being able to be caught up with all the technology will really help move the information along.
On your phones.
And of course, when you've got a source like WILI, where you have people who you know giving you the information when you need it, when you need a question asked, when you have to ask a question and you need an answer, you'll be in a situation where absolutely you can connect with that person and get that answer. Whereas it wouldn't be necessarily so if you were to talk to somebody on one of the national TV or national types of telecommunication industry things that are going on, that we have pharmaceuticals and the and the insurance industry doing all the advertising, and so they might have a little bit of control in what you're hearing as well. And it's really something that, plus just connecting with people in those areas is very, very difficult.
All right. Well, one thing I brought today that we're going to share with you, if we have time, is a reading of the Declaration of Independence, something you haven't heard probably in a real long time. Mm-hmm. I know it's a little bit of history, but with the elections coming up, this is being read by President John F. Kennedy. So you'll recognize the voice, many of you. But as he reads it, think about the time that Susan spoke about when people wrote those words on paper. And think about voting this year. And you connect your own dots to the words and see how much of that document rings true today. And I think it's worth a listen. So give JFK 10 minutes and enjoy.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government and to provide new gods for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish their right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative power, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amounts and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the work of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an indistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of a right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Hey, well, this is absolutely fabulous. This is the first for Let's Talk About It to have the Declaration of Independence on the air. And I think it's a good time to have that refresher.
President Kennedy.
Yes, President Kennedy, and it was wonderful. And I think he's the last one, maybe, that has read the Declaration of Independence to the public. It may be time for that to occur again.
I would welcome that.
Yes, I think so.
And I want to thank you, by the way, for having me on today to share the story of what we're trying to do here with the station and our individual shows, and collectively to get more people involved. It was really nice to share this today.
Well, thank you so much for being on the air, and thank you for inviting me to be on your show on Wednesday. That was a real treat, and this is how you got on my show on Friday.
There you go. We'll keep it going with all the
All right.
shows, and you're always welcome.
And don't forget to listen to Matt Rupar on Friday at 4.